G'day team, welcome to another video. So this is part 2 of the topography series, which I started recently, and today we're going to be going through how to actually draw a topography and what you're doing when you're drawing a topography, and the two main ways to actually draw one. So the first way that we're going to go through is the manual method. Definitely takes longer, is more prone to human error, but it's better than nothing. So how do you actually find a contour map is a very good question. So here we are on the Brisbane City Council PD Online, which I'm pretty sure stands for Property Development Online, but every local council should have some variation of this. And Brisbane City actually has an interactive mapping version of this. So generally the contour map is going to be a layer on whatever is going on here. So if we drop this little menu down here, click on contours, and it's going to load the contours on, which is actually, I randomly chose this house and street just because it's called Scott Street. And it looks like this house coincidentally is right at the the top of the hill. It's a little bit hard to see what's going on, so I'll turn the base map off because you really don't kind of need it when drawing contours. And this is it. So now that we have this, generally the way that I would get this into Revit is I would take a screen snip. So you'd use the snipping tool. So I use the snipping tool all the time. And when you take this snip, you want to see at least two of the contours because you need to be able to know which one is up and which one is down. So that's a fair amount. We've got 42 here, 41, 40, 39, 38. And it was the top of the hill too because I'm familiar with the area, but this could have been like the bottom of a gully. So you can save this wherever you'd like now on your desktop or in the project file. So the other thing that you're going to need to know is the area of this block. So ideally you would have an RP plan or something, but you can actually draw this rectangle and then use a little bit of math to get it to scale up to 688 square meters. So we'll keep that in mind, but we'll jump over to Revit now. Okay, so first thing you're going to want to do in here is link the image that we've just saved. Place it here. I'm going to rotate it so that the front boundary is on the right-hand side. The reason this is most houses are rectangular shaped. The pages that we print these plans on are rectangular shapes. You can fit more across here than you can across here. So elevation 1 is generally going to be looking from the right-hand side. So this is the street side, that's elevation 1, good to go. Now, we want to scale this up. That's about 7 meters, so quite narrow, but I would imagine that this at the absolute minimum is probably like 10 meters. So I'm going to do a very rough scale and make it 2 times the size now. Then we can start to scale it up. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to draw a filled region because they are easier to scale than actual property boundaries. So I'm just going to draw this in the rough thing like that, and it's scaled as sand. So at the moment, that's actually pretty close. That's 610 square meters. So if you remember before, it actually needs to be 688 square meters. So here is the one and only math equation that I've ever needed to know how to do this job. So we're currently at 610 square meters. We need to be at 688 square meters. We get the square root. Wow, I'm really good at math, hey? Is that the button? Yeah, I assume so. Square root of 610, which is, I'm just going to put it off to the side so I can type it in accurately. 24,698, 178. So the more decimal places, the better. And then 688, square root of that is similar. Okay, So I'm not even going to pretend to get this right the first time because I never do in reality, but we need to divide one of these by the other. And like I said, I'm really not good at math. I can spot a spelling error from 1,000 kilometers away, but when it comes to numbers, I have to really double check my stuff. So we need, the box that we've drawn is too small. We need it to get bigger. So it needs to be a surplus number. So if we divide the bigger number by the smaller number, I'm pretty sure that's going to do what we need it to do. So 26.229754 divided by 24.698178, 1.062. So I'm just moving this off to the side so that I can do the scale thing. All right, so we'll go here, edit boundary, RE for scale, or we'll just click on the scale thing up there. Give it a numerical change of 1.062011. And then just click anywhere. Have a look at that, 688.6. So in the lexicon of the builder, close enough is good enough. So now we have a roughly to scale site plan, which we can start plotting these contours on. And the reason that you want it to be roughly to scale is because you can't just scale up and stretch out topography. It just doesn't work because it's point data. It's just points. It's thousands and millions of points. So now that we've got this, massing and site, property align, create by sketching, tab, select to choose all of the boundaries or borders, select that, delete that, bang. 688.6. To be honest, if I was actually drawing this job for real, I'd be wanting to go a bit closer to 688 dead, but you know, this is just a YouTube video that I'm not getting paid for, so. All right, now the next step. So this is the first method of drawing a topo surface. So we go massing and site, topo surface. You can go place point, which is for people that don't have a DWG prepared by a surveyor, or you can go create from import. And then the thing that I do is select import instance. That's what I'm going to do next. But first I'm going to show you place point because that is, when you've got nothing else, that's the best option. So remembering from the first video about contours, you can see that there is a major contour and a minor contour. So if this is 40 and this is 41, and we've got this little dashy line in the middle here, that tells me that that is probably 40.5. So these contours are at 500 millimeter intervals, which is good to know. There might be, you'll get survey plans or contour plans with 200 or 250 mil intervals. That is important to work out very, very soon. So that means that this little top of the hill here is 42.5. So you type in 42,500, and then we're just going to click, 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 click. Now then, it doesn't need to be perfect. It does not. People will tell you that it will, but this is close enough. Honestly, close enough is good enough. Now we'll go to 42,000 and we'll trace. Let's press escape for a second, go wireframe so we can actually see. So the difference between hidden line is I can't really see the contour map underneath this. Go wireframe, WF, or just change it down here, is going to tell me what's going on underneath. So I'll do a couple more and then we'll have a look at it in 3D just to get a good understanding of what's going on. So we've got a bit of a contour map. We've got everything going on. It's obviously it's a bit rude, bit gross to leave this in the site plan. So I would highly recommend making a little detailed group. Let's just go contour. I mean, we've got a layer called contour light, but it can just be a dash line if you want. This is a weird situation because circular. Normally contours will just go from like one side of the site to the other like this, but we don't have that. So I'll draw these as like a spline, but essentially you just want to draw a basic, you can barely see it. Okay, so I've drawn all of those in. Let's hide this, see how it looks. Yeah, that's looking pretty okay. Do a hide reset, hide my topography again. There is a contour label text thing. I have never found it anything close to acceptably good. So I would just generally do a text. A text thing like this. So we'll go 42.5, 42, 41.5, and 40. Hide this. Create a group. Ooh. Okay. So I mean, like, aside from like a little tiny bit of, you know, consistency of lines through there, this is pretty much all you would need, right? And what this will translate into in 3D is this. So it doesn't look like much, but that's it. That's the contour. So if we were to draw some basic walls here. Oh, I didn't like that. Probably because I've got rooms and stuff, because this was an old job. Select all of these. Say that they're 50,000 meters high. Okay. So now you can kind of see there's like, these are the extents of the property. If I did a section box of that, you can see it's a bit of a weird site because it looks quite flat, but it's kind of the top of the hill. So yeah, look, if I was developing on this site, it's pretty good, man. That's pretty good. The next example I'm going to show you is of a site which is not so friendly. So yeah, enjoy this view while you can, because when you really want to be drawing a topo surface from an import is with the next site that I'm going to use. So yeah, let me set that up now, and we'll get stuck in on that. But so the things to remember here are, if you want to show contours, you have to find the contours from a local planning source. You want to take a screenshot of those, import them into the job, and then trace. You want to have two things on the site plan. You want to have the contour map. So this is where you label the contours, and then you want to have the actual topography as well, which is what's going to be in the 3D mode, and it's going to be in the elevations. All of these things are very important. Don't bother drawing a contour map until the site is properly drawn and scaled. Generally, you'll be provided with some sort of, here's the site, here's an RP plan. I've done a video about drawing boundaries from an RP plan, so you should know how to do that. But yeah, it has to be to scale. Then you can start to, you know, trace the contours, trace the topography. They're two separate things, but they really should mean the same thing. It's just the fact that having a topography visible on site plan is generally, I've just found it more troublesome than it's worth. If you spend a couple of minutes doing this, which is really the same information, just a lot like stripped back and neat, it's going to look so much better, and it's just going to function better. Whereas if you have the topography visible and you do the contour label thing, I find I have less control over it, and it doesn't produce as good of a product. But yeah, this is all tied to the manual topography method. So let's get started on the auto topography method. Okay, now, not all sites are created equally. Some of them are big rural sites, which are very legitimately mountainous. You'll see that a lot. And here's a good example that we had recently of a massive block. So, you know, this boundary is 925 meters long. It's a big property. Here's the contour survey. So, you know what contours are, you kind of know what you're looking at. this is a big old site, and this is a lot of fall. So let's have a look here. So we've got, this is 101 meters, that's 100, 99, 98. That's steep, and there's trees, and there's all sorts of stuff going on. Now, you could manually draw only the meter contours in, but if you're going to be drawing, let's see. So if this is 100, so this is a meter between 2, 4, 6, 8. So these are 200 mil contour intervals. And it's just going to take hours for no reason. So how do you put this in the job? Let's go through it. So back in this file here, hopefully the surveyor, so the person that puts that scribbly mess of contours together is a surveyor. So let's go link CAD. You really, really hope that they have sent you one of these. It's just a DWG. And a DWG with lines with heights attached to them. Okay, so before you just start clicking buttons and going crazy, you want to make sure that you're doing this within the view. Don't be doing it on, like, looking at it through the title or the title block. So let's have a look at. Okay, so this is the site plan with the view attached. So if I activate this view and then I go link CAD, see how this has been ghosted out. I don't have a choice with this anymore, but I really don't want this to be ticked. If you tick this, you're really limiting the amount that you can interact with the DWG file. So let's cancel out of that. And this is an easy thing to miss, and it will be a case of you'll import it, you'll place the DWG, it all looks good to go, and then you go to make a topography, or you go to do or change something, and it's like, nah, I don't know what you're talking about. So let's get out of this, go back up to, I think it was the site plan that we were at. All right, link CAD. Don't import CAD, you link CAD. Click on this. Uncheck current view only because we value our time. I usually just go black and white for colors, and then I'll just leave these at auto because you can tweak them. If it's imported at the wrong scale, you can either import it or link it again, or you can change it within the type parameters of the DWG. So let's go open. It's not here, that's fine. Double click the scrolly wheel of the mouse and it will go zoom to extents. And then, so this is it here. So this is what we were looking at. So this jumbled mess here is the kind of the raw DWG, but don't be overwhelmed because it's not too hectic. Click on it, let's go query. So first thing you want to get rid of, so you're able to hide elements of this quite easily. If we see how these got these little triangle things going on, so click on that, and that's going to be called triangle, or there's another word for them, but I can't recall it at the moment. And you want to go hide in view. That's good. That's looking way better now. So let's click on this because we just want to see what it's called. So this is called contour. They're all called contour, I hope. Contour. That's going to be the 100 meter contour. So they're all called contour, which is good. We need to know this. Now let's go massing and site, topo surface, create from import, and then select import instance. So this is where we click on the survey DWG. Click on that. Now you can see that all of these layers have been selected. We don't want that. All we want is the contour layers. So if you're not too familiar with AutoCAD, it's terrible, don't bother. But if you need to know, all these lines are called layers. So it's been a long time since I've used AutoCAD and I don't miss it for a single second. So all we want to do is isolate contour, go okay. Now it's going to think because it's going to produce about 400 million points of data. And that's good to go. So it looks like it kind of cuts off at 100 meters, which is probably what the top of my view plane is, but don't worry about that for now. And then we'll just go, okay. So as long as the contour, the topography and the DWG are on top of each other, you can then go and draw the property boundary wherever it needs to be. As long as everything lines up, the DWG has to line up exactly with the boundary, and it all has to be in unison. So let's turn off our selection box. Okay, so this has come through, which is good. So the layers for the boundary and stuff, they're all on the ground plane, but the triangulation data and the contour lines, they're all up at the right height up here. So yeah, so if it didn't work, this would be totally flat, but it has worked because it's got a bit of like rise and dip and everything in it. So let's just isolate this so that we don't have to deal with DWG floating around. And yeah, that looks pretty good. So if we go edit surface, I've got a really fast computer and this is really struggling. So there's a lot of points, and I choose all of these. Cool. So using this method has saved me about 7,588 clicks, assuming I did it perfectly and didn't have to redo a single line. And we can always check. So it's important to, and I didn't really notice, well, you don't really do this in the manual method, but you click and select, and then you have to double check that, is this contour the 101/500 contour? You have to check that, because if it's not at the right level, then it's not right. You have to adjust it. But say we were building to 101/500, and that was to be our zero line, and this is a bit of a cheat thing here. If I wanted to make that 0, click here, do this, move it down 101/500, good to go, back to top view, edit. That's now 0. So you can either move the levels of your Revit file to suit the topography, or you can move the topography down to suit the levels. The second method is a little bit sketchier, but arguably quicker. So this has turned into a bit of a long video. I think we've covered enough there. Definitely going to cut it short, but the next video that I'm going to get into is going to be, you've got a topography, you've got a house that needs to go on that land. How do you make the land work? Because earthworks is almost always involved in a job, and knowing what you can and can't do, how to draw it and how to model it is super important. So let's call it there. Thank you all for your time. I hope you got something out of this. If you're a student and you sat through all of this, you're just gonna crush it after learning all of that stuff, because it's hard to explain that, and it's hard to find the time. Like, I'm doing this at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning while the wife and daughter are at a swimming lesson. So, if it's Friday afternoon and one of my staff is like, "Oh, hey, how do I do this?" Do I have at the moment, this is 29 minutes of recording. Do I have 29 minutes to just set aside to explain this? No, I'm gonna have to condense it, and I'm not gonna be able to do as good of a job. But yeah, look, I'm glad you found this video. I hope you got something out of it. Yeah, I'll talk to you all soon. Have a good day. Catch you later. Bye.